There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Do you know the difference between the ruby red slippers and the silver slippers? Well, the ruby red slippers are from the movie The Wizard of Oz out of Kansas. The silver slippers are from the book and the movie The Wiz out of St. Louis. These are the kind of things that you notice when you're growing up trying to navigate your racial identity and find a place called home. But I've learned if we can take the truths from the movie Home and we can use our brains and we can use our heart and we can have courage, we can navigate our way through any situation. Now, initially, I did not want to come and do a TEDx talk. Let me just get that out the way. I wanted to take my multicultural family on Family Feud and slay. That is not what happened. I am here talking about home. 1314 East Michigan, you have to use brains, was my grandmother's house. Everybody loved my grandmother's house. It was in front of the train yard where my cousins would play, and she would cook, and everyone enjoyed eating from her table. She wouldn't make escargot or quiche. She made fried fish, fried chicken, fresh greens, and cornbread. She didn't make apologies for her food. She made what was available and what was authentic. And because she was so authentic, people felt special at my grandmama's house, especially me, though, because I had a secret. See, if you asked me when I was a little girl what color I was, and people do ask little kids that, I would tell you that I was strawberry. Why would I tell you I was strawberry? Because I had a chocolate mother and a vanilla father. And he wasn't any vanilla. He was he wasn't white chocolate like Justin Timberlake or Robin Thicke. He was like a regular white dude. And he was amongst, chocolate people. And so I felt special then. And I don't know how my parents got together or what way the winds were blowing the day they met, but they did try to work it out despite the naysayers. So when my mother got pregnant, both sides of the family held their breath. Because, see, my mother was already a divorced mother of 3, and my father was working on his double major at Western Michigan University, and his father had just died last year. So there were some decisions that had to be made. And all while I was in the womb with all the adversity that I'd gone through, one would think that I came out striking the Wonder Woman pose. But I didn't. I actually was conflicted. See, although I was obviously biracial, I was raised a light-skinned black, and that was okay with me. I didn't even want people to know my identity. I would say, don't tell anybody I'm biracial. I didn't want people to know. So when my sister told me drinking coffee would make me black, honey, I drank all the coffee that I could. And when my cousin would say out loud in front of everybody, I know you're mixed because you're eating tuna sandwiches and white milk, I would say, please, don't reveal my identity. Even now, even yesterday, I was in the beauty shop, and if my beautician, she says, I can't believe you're biracial because your tight curl pattern. I say, please, I can feel my chest get tight. Don't reveal my identity without my permission. It's mine. See, I was prematurely aware of the one-drop rule. The one-drop rule is where biracials are viewed as members of their lower status parent group. Y'all know, like when Tiger Woods was arrested a few weeks ago, they put black on his mugshot, and he'd been telling y'all that he was Calblinasian for 15 years. The one-drop rule is a racial classification that said if you have even one drop of sub-Saharan African blood, if one of your great-grandparents has one drop of sub-Saharan African blood, then you are considered black. As my cousins would say, if your mama, your daddy black, you black child. As the late Tammy Jeffries would say, if one drop is all it takes, then thank God I qualify. See, I'm old school biracial. I was born in a time and a day when you had to choose a side and stick with it. I didn't even come out of the closet with my racial identity until 2001, and that's when Dr. Mark Orby explained to me that I could use the common sense approach, that I could assume a multicultural identity, that I could embrace a colorblind society, or I can embrace my African American heritage. And because I guess it was easier, I just decided to embrace my African American heritage. Now, don't look at me like I look biracial. This is a wig. And even in America, you have to be at least 68% white looking to be even considered biracial. When I was born, there were only 500,000 identified biracials in the United States. And as I thought about that, that's kind of low. But I think it's because in the 1970s, there was no box on the U.S. Census for racial classification. So those that chose to be biracial then were amongst the first to do so. I'm pretty sure had my mother got a Census Bureau, but she probably didn't fill it out because she, never mind. If my mother filled out the census, she would put I was black. But now there's 6.8 million biracials in the United States, and they're proud. But I was conflicted because on 1314 East Michigan, I was reminded of my identity because that was the place where my father would come and pick me up from my mother's world. Now, that was my grandma's house, I just told y'all. Even though it was easier logistically for him to pick me up there, my father, Mr. Vanilla, loved going over my grandma's house because my grandma would have a big plate of food waiting for him, and he would eat it, and he would laugh and talk, and we would laugh at him because he said, "Oh, Miss Johnson, I love these yam pies." And we would laugh because we call them sweet potato pies. What is a yam pie? My family loved him. My family loved my father, and that was okay. It was okay for him to be there. He liked it so much that he would even take my sisters to his world with him. His world was 922 South Beach, Gold Lake. It was all white. Only person looked halfway biracial in that picture is me. But he would take all of my sisters there with him. There was my other grandmother. There was my Uncle Gordo. There was my Aunt Esther. I think my white cousins thought I was from the Big Brother, Big Sister program. I kid you not. But they know who I am, so shout out to the mail shankers. They didn't talk much about my race, even when I would go there by myself. They didn't talk much about race, but there I actually did feel black. We had fun, though. We had a different kind of fun. It was like a free fun. Even with our elbows off the table, we had fun. With our napkins in our lap, using what we call white words, which was proper grammar, we had fun. With our hair unpressed and our clothes unpressed, we had fun. And then he would take us back home with our ashy knees and afros, and it would be okay because it was home. It was home for us. I moved a lot. Moving takes heart. Moving takes heart. When I was a little girl, I moved from place to place. I moved from Patterson Street to Lulu Street to Holly Street to Lane Street to Lay Street to Lay Street to Lane Street to James Street to 705 North Eucalyptus to 704 Plymouth to 99th and Normandy to 66th Street to Market Street to Eucalyptus Street to Hyde Park to Inglewood Avenue. I moved so much, I stopped remembering the addresses. From the time I was a little girl to 2001, I had moved 30 times. And when you're navigating your racial and your identity, it's tough. I had like a PTSD from moving. See, I would get embarrassed, feel powerless, feel lonely, and then the cycle would start again. My job was to take the red eviction tag off the door so we wouldn't be embarrassed as a family and to make sure the boxes were packed. But even now, I'm a really good mover. Don't think about my mother in that tone of voice. I can feel it. I can feel it. My mother was a good mom, but she was very creative, so what would happen is she would fix up a place, and then they would raise the rent. Back then in California, in the 80s, she paid $950 for a 3-bedroom apartment in Inglewood, so rent was just high. So we moved a lot. But in 1992, after the Rodney King riots, I decided that I wanted more stability in my life. So I decided to move back to Michigan to 2226 South Burdick. Oh, I forgot Burdick. But I moved to Burdick. And my father had married then. He married a woman from a traditional Irish Catholic family. And she was very dutiful as a stepmother. She did her job as a stepmother. But what she did the best was to have my two brothers, Mark and Spike, who have my heart, but don't tell them. So I have two younger white brothers from another mother, and I got three older black sisters from another mister. And I was in the middle, and I was conflicted. But sometimes when you're conflicted, you need courage. So I decided when I was on my way to the yellow brick road, I didn't want to meet the whiz. I decided that I would meet Jesus. And through his teachings, I learned to love. I learned to see the world through a lens of love like I can't even describe. I learned to see my family's idiosyncrasies and learn from their idiosyncrasies, actually even embrace them because their idiosyncrasies were in me. So I stopped blaming and I started rebuilding. I went back to school. I got my associate's degree. I got my bachelor's degree. And on the day, 14 years ago today, Alvin, is my anniversary today, I walked down the aisle. And it was amazing. It was amazing. And I was tired because I graduated that morning. I'm tired today. 14 years later, I still ain't got a break. But I may have been exhausted, but I noticed that there was a white side and a black side to my wedding. They were separate, and they were kind of unequal. I noticed my tendency to compartmentalize my life was crashing in. And then the next week, I moved to Columbus. So going back home was very, very hard because I didn't know who I was going to stay with. Was I going to stay with the black people? Was I going to stay with white people? It was exhausting. And then I had a husband and kids and in-laws. So I stopped dividing and I started inviting. I would invite my father to my black church. Him and my Uncle Gordo would stand up. When the Spirit got a hold of them, their face would turn red. They're clapping on the 1 and 3. And that was okay. That was okay. And I would invite my black friends to the lake, and they had just got their hair done, but they would jump out with an afro, and that was okay. It was okay because love is not ashamed. Love is not ashamed, and love is not apologetic. But in 2015, I learned that love was stronger than the grave because my father was diagnosed with colon cancer. He was diagnosed in May, and he was gone August 16th. I didn't even have time to wrap my mind around it. I honestly thought that he was going to live until the moment that he died. And so I was conflicted, and I was confused, and I didn't know a lot. I was angry. One of the things that was in the back of my mind was, what was I going to do with this identity thing? Had my time expired with my white family? Did they want anything else to do with me? I really didn't know. I was so sad, I began to obsess about my death, actually. But then one day the Spirit rose up in me and said, go ahead and write your obituary and get it over with. Write your obituary so you can live. And so I wrote it. And I wrote it like the walls of separation in my family were knocked down. I wrote it so we could be free. Now, how many know it's easy to write something? It's hard to live something. And so I had to live it, which means I had to ask hard questions like, did you really vote for Trump? What you really think about Hillary and Barack Obama? Tell me. You could tell me. I won't tell nobody. I also had to do stuff like answer the phone after 5 p.m., which everybody knows I hate to do. But it's okay because we're working on our home. Last summer, my family went to Nebraska, and we visited my Uncle Gordo and my Aunt Joni and their farm in Nebraska. And we had a great time. my brother, Spike, went to the Johnson family reunion a few summers ago, and he was giving dap like he knew what to do. Even last Thanksgiving, my brothers came here to Columbus, and they ate my fresh greens, and they ate my sweet potato pies, and I even got Mark to peel a few potatoes. I knew. They even went to my hip-hop class, which was interesting, because they still on the 1 and 3, too. But what was the biggest thing that we did? We decided to go to the shoe. Throw the tomatoes at me, it's okay. We decided to go to the shoe dressed in maize and blue. Okay, I'm an Ohio State fan too, but okay. But not when they play Michigan. But we decided to go to the shoe dressed in maize and blue, and we decided that we would get beat up together as a family, win or lose. And they booed us all the way in. Even my daughter was like, I'm just a kid. We had fun. We were ride or die. When I see my brothers, I tell them, not only do they have a sister, they got a sister. Listen, and every now and then you need a sister. When I see my brothers, I see home. And I hope when they see me, they see home. Because home is what you make it. I've been in my house right now for 10 years. So going back to Michigan sometimes requires a hotel. But it's okay because when I see them, I see home. I've never lived in a place for 10 years. Every now and then I get the itch to move. But I know that I have to move forward. I read in an article that the Eskimos have 50 words for snow. Perhaps we need more words for identity because it's not just a box that you check on a census. Perhaps we need more words for home because it's not just the address that we look away from in the rearview mirror. Home is before us, and no matter where your yellow brick road is going, it's what we make it. It's before us every day. So make your house a home. Thank you.